expression, there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
Sure.
Everyone wants to, you should do it. And in fact, sometimes what happens is, pastor may delegate a responsibility to someone, and he has given it for that person to do. And that person does what? Delegate to someone else. But they didn't do what they were supposed to do, which was to complete the task. So then all of a sudden, that task that was supposed to be completed wasn't done properly. And then they want to blame, but no, you can't blame. You were given. So that's something to learn right there. You got to be obedient. If you want to eventually be a leader, you have to serve. You have to be obedient. Here's something, and I'm just laying down a foundation. We often look at leadership, and this is just true of all of us. We often focus on the leader. In fact, we look at the pastor. When you think of leadership, you automatically do what? Think of a leader. But leadership is not necessarily for a leader. Leadership should be considered in the context of a leadership team. A leadership team that does what? Works together, collaborates.
Right.
Collaboration is a kingdom principle. The early church, what did they do?
Collaborate.
You want success in your church. You want success in your business. You gotta learn how to work as a team. What is team? Together. Everyone achieves more. A foundational principle is, and I'll share this with you, and Philippians 2 is the backdrop for this. You can look at Philippians 2 as a case study. Philippians 2, where it talks of Jesus did what? He emptied himself of his reputation, his rank, his status, and came what? In the likeness of man to serve. Who did? Jesus. The king, the priest, the prophet, the Messiah. If he could do it, who are we to just serve? Let me share a quick story with you. And I'm already on course on my presentation. I'm going into preaching more than I am facilitating. I was the executive director of Timothy Academy, a school located in the inner city of Philadelphia, the hood. You know, crime, drugs, you name it. But why was I there? I was compelled by the mission. God placed me there. And, one day, the secretary, we have two facilities, or we had two facilities. I was meeting with the child care director, and the school secretary calls me and says, Mr. Greenaway, one of our students, he regurgitated, and it's all in the lobby area. And in my mind, I'm like, why are you calling me? And she said, I called all the different people, the janitors, and they were not picking up. What should I do? Call them again. So at this point, she calls back. I didn't get it. I said to the child care director, as you were saying about the task needs to be done, now this. I walked back over because the buildings are in close proximity to each other. And I said to her, unfortunately, there is an emergency and I have to leave. And I had a t-shirt in my office, and I grabbed the t-shirt, put it on, went into the janitor's closet, got the mop, the bucket, got the combs, and it was some pink stuff. Sorry for the visuals. But you know what I did? I began to clean that stuff up. Because, you see, the organization cannot function properly if we see a mess like that and no one wants to clean it up. But I was sending a message to the leadership team, to our people, our employees. Listen, no one is too good to clean up the mess. I don't like cleaning up other people's mess. But you know what? We are there to serve. We're a Christian school. Come on! And I had to lead by example. That's a leadership principle. But where am I going with this? If you want to be a leader, write this down. If you want to be a leader, the first thing, the first prerequisite is this. Yes, we said you got to be called, but you have to have a heart for people. Many of us don't like people. Some of us, let me not say many, but we want to lead people. If you don't have a heart for people, how are you going to lead them? They're going to see through that. They're going to see that you don't care for them. And you want them to perform at a high level, they're going to say no. They're not telling you, but you see it in their body language. They give you resistance, pushback. So you have to have a heart for people. It has nothing necessarily to do with if it's a Christian organization or a business organization. Because when you look at the corporate world, there are so many things that are geared towards people. Because a lot of these companies, they don't want to get sued. So they have to be sensitive to the needs of the employees. That's where HR, human resource management, comes in. So you must have a heart for people. The definition, as you can see on the slide, leadership is the ability of an individual to influence a group or another individual toward the achievement of goals and results. Do we agree on that definition? Yeah. We can live with that definition. Definitions of leadership, just moving down. Leadership, as we have that definition. If you were interviewing for a new person, a position, and you were asked for your definition of leadership, how would you respond? Just a show of hands, you could volunteer. How would you respond? Well, if I would say, we have a position for Senior Vice President of Marketing, what's your view of leadership?
My view of leadership would be, first of all, being able to follow, being observative, trying to define the atmosphere of the company that I will be entering into, and working with others to make improvements.
Any other, you want to take a crack at it? Well, what would you say if I was to ask you? You were interviewing for a position. What would you say your view of leadership is? Your definition.
Leadership is influence.
Leadership is influence. Explain that to me.
The understanding that we all influence people, and therefore, as a leader, I have to check the influence that I'm having on people, and I have to check who I'm being influenced by.
That's very good. Anyone else want to take a crack at it?
I would say leadership is adding value and duplicating yourself.
Value.
So being a leader is being able to not only influence the lives of others, but being able to give a part of yourself to them, and so that you're duplicatable, and that vision that you have is transferred from one person to the next for the bigger picture.
That's good. Let's keep moving on here.
As Williams said this morning, that he was identifying some of the definitions of leadership, and he talked about the ability to communicate.
It's an excellent.
The imperative of being able to communicate the goals and the vision of the organization. Because if you're not able to articulate that properly and to where it must be, people in the organization actually don't know what's going on.
We're going to talk about later this afternoon, and I love the fact that you mentioned that. One of the areas that I wanted to, just as you shared that, we're very much familiar with this passage, Matthew chapter 9. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 9 very quickly. gives you an understanding, and this is using my lens, my perspective, an example of what leadership should look like. And it reads like this, and I'm reading from the New Revised King James Version, verse 34. Matthew chapter 9, verse 34. And it reads, and Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. So he was ministering to the people. Did you get it? Matthew? Yeah. I just
9:35.
Yeah, 9:35. I'm sorry, 35. And then I'm reading verse 36, and it reads, but when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were weary and scattered like sheep, having no shepherd. And then he said to his disciples, the harvest truly is plentiful, but the laborers therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into the harvest. We got to be so careful that you could be ministering and doing your job of ministry, so busy doing it that you lose sight, and there are people that are right in your space, in your place, in proximity to you, and they're hurting, they're wounded, and you don't even see it. But what an example he showed us as a leader. I can't just look at this and not respond to it. I got to do something. I'm going to minister to them, I'm going to heal, I'm going to touch. And even in Mark, it talks about what he did. He fed the people. He said, I'm not just giving you the spiritual word, but I want to make sure that you have food to eat, because you have traveled so far just to receive a word from me. That speaks volumes. One of the things a leader that I know personally, one of the things he did for his employees sometimes, and it was in the field of construction. You know, construction is a type of job where field that it's cyclical. There are times when you have your high peak, and then there are times you have slow downturn times. He would sometimes, just to let his employees know that he cares about them, because he would have to lay them off sometimes during those slow times, but he would keep them on as long as he could, because he knew they had mortgages, he had families, and he would have to go into his pocket. He's literally losing, but he had a compassion for his employees. So what would he do? He would extend their paycheck for a couple of weeks, even though they weren't working. And their response was, I saw it firsthand. My observation was this: they wanted to work for him. Even when they had jobs and things, and they had to leave and go and do other things, when he started to have work, they would say, "Do you have anything?" They would even show up and volunteer, because they saw that this leader cared more for them than it was about the bottom line. You have to balance. That's leadership. And we see that in the person of, to me, in my opinion, the greatest leader that ever existed, Jesus. Powerful case study, powerful example, powerful lessons to learn on the issue of leadership. I want to look at another passage, and someone could read this. We're going to look at Mark chapter 9, just as we're building a case to understand what leadership should look like. Because there's so many perceptions and images of what leaders are like today, and sometimes you say to them, is that what it entails? Is that the way it should look? So let's look at Mark chapter 9. And we are going to look verse 43. Can someone read Mark chapter 9, verse 43 to 45, please?
If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter the territory It is better for you to enter life.
Actually, I'm sorry, it's Mark chapter 10. Mark chapter 10.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Mark 10, 43 to 45. Sorry about that. 43.
Now we're going back to bleeding there for a minute.
Yeah, it
Yet
shall
it
not.
shall-
Go ahead.
somebody-
Go ahead.
Yet it shall not be so among you, but whosoever desireth to become great among you shall be your servant. And whosoever of you desireth to be first shall be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many.
That is self-explanatory. That is a powerful portrayal, a picture of what the highest level of leadership looks like. You know, one of the things that I had to experience were times when, you know, the economy was real bad in the state of Pennsylvania. In fact, it was one year that it was so difficult, and we had to readjust our budget. We had to have budget cuts and things of that nature, and the state budget was not passed. We relied heavily on state funding. We had a child care program, and they would supplement or subsidize some of the education for the children. The child care program, just to tell you how important we needed, how important those resources were, the child care was 85% subsidized. So 85% of the income at that time came from the state. Because once again, just giving you a picture, the environment that we were in was impoverished. It was a low-income community. So the budget is not passed. So that means monies are not coming in. And we had to make a decision. Either we make the parents pay, or if they can't pay, we say, you know what, your child can't come here. And I made a decision that we were going to allow them to continue. And we were believing that God would provide the resources. And that's, you know, bottom line. Because if we don't have money coming in, how do we pay our employees? And as a leader, how do I even get paid? So I had to, you know, and I had to make a decision and say, oh boy, what do we do? But the mission was what determined, that filtered my decision making. I knew the bottom line. I said, let's try to hold out a little bit. Let's work with our parents. And eventually, the budget was passed. And the parents were so thankful. In fact, they said, this is a place that we're going to have our children stay until they even graduate and transition. So leadership, it requires you at times to make some difficult decisions. Are you going to shy away from it, or are you going to take it on? And that's how you develop and how you grow into that position as well.